Tim, great to see you. I want to start off getting your sense of what's happening with people's health and healthy use of technology in a pandemic where people are turning to devices for things we used to go directly to people for.
Right. Well, I think in a nutshell, people are losing control over how they use their phones. And the focus of Moment is to help you recontrol or get control back of how you use your phone. And I think that the pandemic and the quarantine is making that worse and more challenging for people.
So put yourself back into that director of monetization mindset. When you're already trying to get people into loops of usage and kind of gamify their behavior, but now they're even more turned toward your product to connect with family, with everyone. What happens? What's the impact from here of what all of these companies are going to be doing in these moments?
Well, I think the impact is that look, Facebook doesn't want to arbitrate truth, and I understand that, right? So they don't want to correct misinformation. They don't want to correct ads that have false statements in it. But the problem with that is that then you leave it to the algorithm. And the algorithm isn't thinking, is this true or not? The algorithm is actually thinking, how do I maximize user attention? So the problem is that the algorithm's intentions and the business model, which is to get as much of your and my attention as possible, is just fundamentally, it's misaligned with showing you what's true and what's correct in the world. And that's what I'm so alarmed by, is that misalignment between the business model, what the algorithm is doing, and then what the outcome is for the user.
Hey, Tim, I wonder what your reaction was to Nick Clegg's interview in the FT last week, where he basically talked about some of the break the glass scenarios the company has in restricting content entirely once the election results really start to roll in. I mean, did that seem novel to you for the company? And how assured are you that they would carry through on some of those measures if needed?
I mean, hard to know what they're going to ultimately do. It doesn't surprise me. When they want to, they can restrict specific types of content. Look, they do it with misinformation on COVID. They do it with hate speech that incites violence, right? They're able to somehow magically find this line where any content that directly incites violence, they can remove. But if it doesn't, they leave it. Unfortunately, the problem with leaving hateful content that doesn't directly or literally incite violence is it still makes people angry. And it still, we all know, ultimately leads to violence.
So, Tim, I just wonder if the algorithm is focused on maximizing engagement, profits are focused on maximizing engagement. What is the solution here? Is there a business case for more moderation? Does that come from regulation? Does that come from a changed business model?
I mean, I think ultimately in the near term, it has to be either the company taking the accountability, which they haven't done so far, and then some regulation. That's kind of near and medium term. I think long term, these companies. And
but what's the business case for that? If they're making so much money, what's the business case for them to change?
The business case is that their consumer is getting sick, and society is changing and eroding. That's the business case, and you're right. There's not a for-profit business case, but I think if we use a frame of what some people call stakeholder capitalism, which is okay, we need to do well, and our constituents need to do well. In Facebook's case, Facebook's doing great, as you point out. Advertisers doing pretty well. Users getting more depressed, getting more anxious the longer they spend on Facebook. Their brains are changing the longer they spend on Facebook. And then if you just look around, you see the impact on society. So if they want to look out for all their stakeholders, right, in the course of building a for-profit business, they've got to be accountable to the health and well-being of their users. And I don't believe that's what's happening right now. I think they're completely disregarding the user and their health and well-being.